Welcome, everyone. My name is Lucy Gray, and welcome to How to Build Your Global Professional Learning Network. And happy Friday to you, wherever you are in the world. If you are joining us live today, please feel free to use the chat in whatever platform you are in, whether you're in YouTube, Hopin, or uh, LinkedIn. Please feel free to say hello in the chat. Tell us where you are and what you do, if you're comfortable with that. And hopefully, you'll see other people in the chat that you can start building your network with. We're using multiple platforms today, but streaming basically from StreamYard. So you may not see everybody's comments if you're in one particular platform. So I will try to uh, share those comments as they come in case you don't see them. So I see that my friend Don is here. Hi, Don. And Don, maybe I'll invite you into the studio at some point too. Um, so before we get started, I also want to give you some ideas on how you can participate actively today. And I have created a Padlet. You can see the link that is scrolling at the bottom of the screen. The link is padlet.com/elementus, which is my username, /build your PLN in capital letters. And if you go to that Padlet, you will see some columns where you can put in your information, some of your favorite tools, and any questions or comments that you have and you want to share with our community. So here's also another way to get to it is to use your phone or other device to scan the QR code, and it will take you right to the Padlet. Padlet is a great tool for collaboration. And also during this webinar, you may want to use your phone or even iPad or other tablet in addition to looking at the screen. And that way you can kind of play with some of the things I'm going to show you. So having two devices is helpful. It's not required, but you may want to have another device handy so you can try out some of the things that we're discussing today. Again, the Padlet is at padlet.com/elementus/build your PLN. I will also put a link to that in the chat in case you want to click on that instead. So let me go ahead and do that. And you should see the link in the chat on several of the platforms that we're discussing today. So I'm really excited to share with you some ideas for getting connected. And the reason that's really important for educators and global education organizations to be connected, there's several reasons. One is for partners of all sorts, including those working on collaborative classroom projects. I think it's also so that you can explore the world yourself and learn about the world by being connected to others and model active global citizenship for your students and family members. And for teachers, it's also a great way to find the best resources, keep current in your field, see what everybody else is doing, and pick some of the best ideas that you can incorporate into your classroom. And if you're presenting at our upcoming conference, the GLOW conference taking place in November, hey Lee, good to see you here. Glad you're checking in. Anyway, so if you're presenting at the GLOW conference in November, this is also using some of the techniques that I'm talking about can help build your session, build the audience for your session, and help you promote it so that people will come and attend it. So hopefully these ideas today will be really practical. If you are a teacher, these will be ideas that you can incorporate into your own self-paced professional development. If you're an organization leader, these are some ideas that you can take in terms of connecting to teachers. And if you're just joining us and you're not necessarily an educator, you might find some of these ideas helpful to you in whatever field that you're in. So that's where we're going today. The bottom line is that global collaboration requires relationships, and social media and other communities can help you build those relationships so that you can collaborate with others across borders. So that's, I don't see technology as a barrier to relationships. I see it as a way of enhancing relationships and giving access to people who may not be able to be somewhere face to face. So you need to build those relationships if you want to collaborate with others online. Social media is the key. I know some people are not so thrilled with social media these days. I just had coffee with someone who was, doesn't use Facebook at all because of concerns about disinformation, and those are valid. So, take whatever tool appeals to you that we talk about today and explore it. You don't necessarily have to do all of these. This might be a little bit of overwhelming, but pick one tool and um, and explore it and see what it does for you. Okay. So, social media is the key. This quote I came across several years ago, and I have no idea who Germany Kent is, but I thought this was really provocative and true. If you're not on social media and you're not learning, not laughing, not being inspired, not networking, then you're using it wrong. And I think that's totally spot on. And hopefully today we'll give you some ideas for using it in ways that will be beneficial to you. So why do people build their networks? Some people are building their personal brand. A lot of people in the ed tech field where I work, are consultants and they want to get out and do outreach and that sort of thing. Some people want to use social networks to keep current, as I mentioned earlier. Some of the, and another aspect of this too is that when you're engaging in using social media to build your global professional learning network, it's really important to practice professional generosity. And this is something that I've talked about numerous times over the years. And what do I mean by that? I mean, you need to be following different kinds of people, have a diversity of the pool that you're following in. Thought leaders, emerging educators, organizations, hashtags. Following those kinds of things will help you build your network. If you're professional generosity, it's important to give attribution and recognize the great ideas presented to you by your peers. So I like to retweet things that I think are really great and amplify them to others. That's a way of being professionally generous. I also like to share resources frequently so that somebody may catch them and use them somehow too. And we're all in this together. We're all in this education space together. And I think this is one way we can support each other and be professionally generous. I will make an aside here. I use a lot of Chrome extensions in my browser that help me do that. I use Buffer. I used to use Hootsuite, but I have like little bookmarklets that will help me use tools and amplify them. And we can get into that as we go along too. It's also really important to highlight and celebrate your colleagues and the work that's going on in your school and your organization. One of my friends, Karen Blumberg, is excellent at this. She's always taking pictures of the work that kids are doing. And we talk often about this idea of being professionally generous, and Karen certainly exemplifies that. So this is just a couple ideas of why people are using social media. The other piece is when you start engaging in a professional learning network, you will experience serendipity. Some things will happen to you that you didn't plan for. You'll meet people that you didn't expect to, and it opens you up to other opportunities that you might be surprised by. Offhandedly, I can think of some people I've met on Twitter a number of years ago. The author of a children's series of books that I really loved followed me on Twitter, and I was so excited. And we got him to present at our Global Ed conference. It was Seymour Simon. If anybody's ever seen his pictures, his kind of photo books that are geared towards young learners. So you never know what's going to happen if you open yourself up to a professional learning network. So my first bit of advice is to start with our conference. And our conference is coming up November 17th and 18th. It's going to be here in Hop-In, and we're taking proposals for it and that sort of thing. But during the conference, which is starting in 11 weeks, if you register now, you can see people who are in there already who are registered, and you can connect to them. And you can actually use our Hopin platform to schedule meetings if you want to meet ahead of time. Our conference will be open for 72 hours around November 18th and 19th. And there'll be more kind of like speed dating, kind of networking activities, speed networking. There's a speed networking feature in Hopin. But right now you can go in there and see who's there and send people a message and say, hey, I would love to talk to you about your work. My recommendation would be really specific about why you want to meet. Don't just do it for the heck of it. But if you go into if you register for our conference, and I'll give you the link later, you have access to people who are already in there. So this is an example of what it looks like when you are registered for the conference and you click on people. You'll see who's registered, and there's a button for sending a message. Eileen, who's also one of our presenters, she's indicated her interests when she registered. So she has these little bubbles here that tell you what she's interested in. And Hopin will kind of make recommendations about people based on your interests that you might like to connect with. So this is one networking place. The other piece of it, when the conference starts, there's also a chat and in for each session, and that's a great way to meet people too. We've had several people actually meet and start doing collaborations with their classrooms in the chats from our previous conference. So it's a really great way to network. The other thing is, here's Eileen's profile. You can see that she's put her LinkedIn link in there at the right underneath her title, her Twitter link, and probably a web page that's to her website. And so you can explore and you can connect to people on other platforms as well if you're looking to build your network. And then you can see, a little bit more about the person too. Their bio is in here. If you do register for our conference, which is completely free, make sure you fill out your profile as thoroughly as possible if you want to grow your network. That would be my advice to you. And you can always edit it. My second piece of advice to you is to explore our main community, which is Actionable Innovations Global. And this used to be called the Global Education Conference Network. The front page looks like that. You have to join. It's completely free. And in it, in any of these things too, we can go back to when we get to Q&A, and I can show you these things live if you have questions. But this is what our member directory looks like. There's an advanced search feature in here. So if you're looking for someone from a particular country, or who has a particular role, like maybe a tech coordinator, you can do an advanced search and find members of our network and send messages then to them and ask for, to collaborate or whatever you want to do. Again, do it purposefully. People might think you're spamming them if you just randomly connect with them. So be intentional and have a purpose so that you're not wasting people's time. But an example of how people have used this in the past, I have a friend who used to teach on Martha's Vineyard, which is an island off of Cape Cod. I just visited her actually this week. And she used to do a whaling project with looking for collaborators in different parts of the world that had whaling at some point in their history. So she would come in here and she would search for people in Iceland or Japan or other places that had a history of whaling so that they could compare notes and work on projects together, because Martha's Vineyard used to be a whaling community back in the day. So in this particular instance, in this screenshot, I'm just looking for people from a particular country. I search for people from Pakistan. I'm thinking about the flooding that's going on there right now. And we actually have a lot of members from Pakistan. 400 popped up. And you can see people who you're friends with who are from Pakistan. You can add them as a friend or just follow them. And you can build your network in our community as well. So this is one of the best features, I think, of our community. We use a platform called Ning. And if you're looking for somebody specific from a specific part of the world, it's a great way to find some connections. Sometimes people don't respond though. So just be aware that some people are more active than others. So let's talk about social media. And I'm going to dive into what my toolbox is. I use a lot of different tools. I use Twitter predominantly, and TweetDeck goes with it. I create social media in a tool called Canva, which has free educator accounts. I use Wakelet for social bookmarking and Digo as well, but I'm moving more towards Wakelet because but I have a lot of stuff in Digo. Um, and Linktree is a way um, of kind of aggregating all your links under one link. It's very helpful, particularly in the bio, when your bio of your social media. So I'll show you when I show you my Twitter profile. I also use Facebook, and LinkedIn is becoming more and more of a great networking tool, particularly because we can broadcast these sessions into LinkedIn, and you never know who's going to find them. So the ones on the left are the ones I'm using the most. The ones on the right I'm using somewhat, but not as regularly. Feedly is how I find content to share. It's a news aggregator. Google Tools. I put out a daily newspaper in Paperly, which is a whole nother conversation. I use Instagram a little bit and Digo, and then some more for newsletters. So these are some of the tools that I use. The ones on the left are probably the ones I use the most. And we're going to dig into those right now and show you what they look like. This is what I do. I don't know if we can move my picture. I guess we can't. Maybe I should just, here we go. This is what my routine is. And I'm kind of crazy with social media. So don't feel like you have to do all these things. But I usually am more active on Twitter every day. I do a newsletter that is auto-published through Paperly on a daily basis, so I don't really need to touch that. Weekly, I look at the incoming content in Feedly and find good things and share them out. And then weekly, I check LinkedIn for content and connections. That's actually becoming more of a daily thing, actually. So these are some of the tools and how I use them. Let me show you what Twitter looks like. So if you look at the first thing you need to do when building your network is making sure that your profile is engaging, that you update it every once in a while, that people can find you if they search Twitter and you have a well-developed profile. So you'll see that I have a banner for our conference. I have a picture that's about 10 years old. I need to update. I have a couple of emoticons, emojis, for paying tribute to Ukraine in my profile. I've also added hashtags to my profile. So if people are interested in these things, they may find me because of those hashtags. I've also linked to my other Twitter account for Actionable Innovations Global, which is Global Ed Action. And you'll see that on the left-hand side it says education. They now have professional statuses in Twitter, and I'm really not sure what that does for anything, but it's there. And then you'll see on the right-hand side my link tree, which is a link to Linktree kind of aggregates several links in one place so that you don't have to give people 5 million links to things. So an example that I'll put in the chat is the one that we use for Actionable Innovations Global. I'll put it in the chat so you can see it. And Lee, I will come back to that question and show you exactly how Paperly works once I get through my slides. That's a really good question that we should tag for later. So I'm going to star that. So make sure your profile is filled out and in depth, and people know who you are, and that I think the better your profile, people are more likely to follow you. Okay, so make sure you spend time doing that. Just as an aside, I bookmark a lot of things to share with people or to go back to. That's one feature of Twitter. This is one that I found this week about a kid who's developed an infrared camera to detect poachers, and she attaches them to drones and monitors them in real time, which is pretty amazing. I think we need to get her to keynote our Global Ed conference. I use lists in Twitter. And I have a tremendous one on global education that I'll give to you as well, so that you can follow people who are in our field. Um, and actually, let me get that right now because it's really it's a huge list and it's really useful. So this list I've been curating on global education for a number of years, and if you I'll show you in a second, but let me get the actual link so you guys can explore it too. I'm going to put that into the chat. Okay, so this list, global education, um, it you can look at it two different ways. One is you can see it's there's like 400, I don't know, there's like 1,000 people on this list that I've made. And when they tweet it, you can see them in this stream. So that's the advantage of using lists. You can narrow your view. Like I follow like 20,000 people on Twitter. I'm not going to look at all of their stuff all the time, but if I put them on a list, I can kind of narrow my view. So this is a list of global education organizations and people who are interested in global education. You can also click on where it says members, and you can follow the accounts that I've curated here. So you can look through this list and say, oh, this person looks like it might be relevant to me, and I can follow them. I think lists are one of the best, most powerful things in Twitter. And if you're not using them, you should, because it's a way of kind of like, I don't know, just organizing what you're looking at. This is an example of a Twitter list that's created by someone else that I've subscribed to. It's called Maker Education. It has 4,000 people on the list and 132 subscribers to it. And somebody named Marilee Ang this is actually her list, but I can subscribe to it and follow it. So consider subscribing to other people's lists too. You don't have to rebuild a list on your own. You can follow something that somebody else has created. And if you look at my account in my list, you can follow those if you want to. There's some other Twitter features that you should know about too. That are important. You can now co-tweet, and it pops up for me every once in a while. You can invite somebody to co-tweet with you. And I have not tried it. There's also some communities where I'm not really sure how it works. I have an Apple community and a global ed community on Twitter, and I don't really see what the use of it is. It's more for tweeting at specific audiences, I guess. Twitter also now does audio with Twitter Spaces. So if you have not explored that yet, I think that's a fascinating tool. I also recommend looking at their analytics feature so you can see if your tweets are going anywhere and who's connecting with them and that sort of thing. It's kind of interesting. And I have a paid subscription to Twitter, which is like $5 a month. And I can bookmark things to folders. But that's not part of their free offering. So you may not want to do that. But these are some of the things you might want to dig into with Twitter. Who to follow? I have some lists that I just showed you one list. I will show you another list in a second. I have kind of a recommended list of people that in general topics that I think are kind of interesting. And if you're new to Twitter, it might be kind of a good list to look through and see if any of these accounts appeal to you. I'll put that in the chat as well. I also recommend looking at specific hashtags. Our hashtags are Global Ed 22 and Glow EDU. EdChat, Global EdChat, ISTE Global PLN, which doesn't quite exist anymore, but you can still use that hashtag. Exchange Our World for people who are interested in exchanges. These are just a couple of them. Also, Cybrary Man's hashtags. If you Google Cybrary Man and hashtags, you'll find a whole list of education-related hashtags that you can follow. So those are some recommendations from my experience. Then I use TweetDeck to organize my tweets, and TweetDeck is owned by Twitter, and you can make these different columns and see everything in one place as opposed to scrolling vertically. And this way I can kind of really monitor things I'm particularly interested in that I want to make sure that I don't miss. So for Twitter chats, like Global Ed Chat is going to be resuming in September with Heather Singmaster of Digital Promise Global. And if you want to kind of monitor the chat in a way that is manageable, TweetDeck helps you do that. So make sure you take a look at TweetDeck for that. I use Facebook quite a bit, and I don't know if this feature still exists or if I've been grandfathered into it, but you can make custom lists and publish content just to those people on that list. And I've had these lists for years, and I add as new friends friend me or I friend them, I add them to a list based on what they do. So if they're from another country, they generally go on the global education list. And if I post something, I can make it only visible to this group of people. And that way, my high school friends or my college friends don't have to see everything that I'm doing. So consider using custom lists. It used to be really a robust thing. I'm not sure how much Facebook is investing in keeping this up, but I find it really useful to have lists. I also really like groups, and this is one called Connected Classrooms, which used to be a Google initiative, and they had a great calendar of kind of public museum events online and things years ago, and it was also a Google Plus community, which no longer exists. And somebody started it in Facebook, and it's become a space where if you're looking to do connect with another classroom, this is where you come to post a request and see if somebody will connect with you. And there are a fair amount of people in here. There's 930 people in here, which is a good size. So if you're a fourth grade teacher and you're looking to do a mystery location call, next Friday at 2, you could post something about it here and see if anybody wants to do it with you. So that's one place to connect. This one is not related to education, but I love it anyway. And it used to be known as the New York Times cooking community until the New York Times decided they wanted nothing to do with moderating it anymore, because it's a lot of really interesting, opinionated people in this group. So it's now called not the New York Times cooking community, but it's an amazing place to learn about food, particularly globally, and to ask questions and that sort of thing. It's a really great example of a very robust group. I think the New York Times really got tired of having to moderate, and so there's some volunteer moderators now that do it. I am, as Don Buckley is in the audience, we are ambassadors to 100, which is a Finnish organization showcasing innovations around the world. It's a fantastic organization with tons of examples of what exemplary education should look like. They have a Facebook group too, where you can learn about people's work and that sort of thing and share your work as well. And I recommend that one for growing your global network big time. So Feedly, I just want to give you an idea of what that looks like. This is where I have links from blogs and other sources that come into one spot. This is called a newsreader. And so once or twice a week, I will look at Feedly and I'll find information to pass on to other people or to read. This is what it looks like. These are my favorite channels are in this particular folder. And I can share things right from here on social media, and that sort of thing. So you may want to take a look at that. Diigo and Wakelet are social bookmarking tools, and you can follow people in them. And that's why it's considered social. Diigo has been around for a long time. This is my main library, what it looks like. I can make a list, like this is a list of YouTube channels that I have. And you can also do bookmarking in groups. So this is a group that you can see Don is a member of right there, that we started a number of years ago for a school that we worked with, and igniting a culture of innovation. And this is where I save links that have to relate to educational innovation. It's me mostly. It's not, there are a lot of people in the group, but not that many people sharing. But it's a social space where people can share. Wakelet has been just an amazing tool the last couple of years. It's really taken over the social bookmarking space. This is what my profile looks like. If you go to Lucy Gray 5375, you'll find it, and you can follow me. And you can make collections in them. So I have a collection of global education resources that are linked in our community. And I can give you the link after this as well. And these are, if you click on these bricks here, they will take you to, really pretty long lists of resources that you can explore and add to your own Wakelet collections as well. So, so that's one place to look. Then LinkedIn. These are some do's and don'ts that my friend Karen and Blumberg and I, who've done workshops related to this before, have kind of developed. Make sure your profile is developed. You can also get a custom URL. So mine has my name in it. So make sure you do that. Connect with people you know. Be careful about people you don't know. It's getting a little bit more spammy in LinkedIn. But you really want to either, I knew somebody a couple years ago who connected to people if they were, he knew them personally and knew of their work, and or if he thought that their work would be beneficial to children, or benefiting children in general. So you have to kind of be a little bit selective with this, because very often I'll have friends that will say, well, I see you're connected to Don, do you know him, can you connect us? And you want to be able to say, yes, I do know that person, or whatever. And so be a little choosy with that. There are different affinity groups within LinkedIn. Like I belong to one from my college. There are other ones on different topics, like for consultants. We have one for Actionable Innovations Global. So think about joining groups. That's a great way to network as well. And then be careful with your settings in LinkedIn. People can tell that you're looking at their profile if you don't go into your settings and change it so that you can look at profiles without being visible. And the default is on. So just be aware of that. And the other thing that is important with LinkedIn is that a lot of people there's a lot more hiring going on through LinkedIn now, particularly with schools. So you want to put your best foot forward with your profile, and make sure that it's pretty complete. So here's some best practices, and then we'll get into, let's see how we're doing for time. We're doing pretty well for time. So we're going to wrap this up, and then we'll do some Q&A and answer Lee's questions and so on and so forth. Be yourself online in terms of building your network. You need to understand hashtags and how they work, and you can search for them. You often can find thought leaders in organizations in multiple channels. Like, for example, Edutopia is one of my favorite resources. Follow them on Instagram, follow them on Twitter, follow them on YouTube. You may find different kinds of content. So if there's some brand that you particularly like, or resource you like, another one is Jennifer Gonzalez and Cult of Pedagogy. I love her stuff. You look at the different ways that they put content out there, and make sure that you're consuming it in a way that is useful to you. Very often in LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever, you can search. So if you search for the hashtag global ed, you might find other global ed people to connect with. So make sure that you try that out and see what happens for you. And I also recommend that you select and use a consistent handle. My username is Elementis. It's a long story behind it. It's not very exciting. I use that in several other locations. So if you see that, it's Lucy. So having kind of a consistent naming structure to all of your social media accounts can also help brand yourself within a network. And then the other piece of this is you have to have a critical mass of people to follow in order to accrue the benefits of having a network. So follow a lot of people if you can, because if you don't, a large group of people won't see what you put out and what you're asking and that sort of thing when you're engaging with your professional learning network. So you don't have to go crazy with it, but try to follow more people than not. The other thing I will add to this, if you're working for an organization, I read somewhere that you should be posting like 8 times a day if you're running an organization account for people to see things. So make sure you're following a lot of people, make sure you're posting fairly frequently, and that you're showing that professional generosity, offering content that will be beneficial to people in your network. If you do, it will come back to you in spades. If you're that kind of poster. So for next steps, I recommend picking one of the tools that we talked about today and digging into it, and then and get confident with it. You don't have to do all of them. Use third-party tools that enhance functionality. So, for example, I use Buffer to send things out to Twitter. Um, if you find somebody that you really you get to know, or you watch from afar, that is good with social media, consider asking them for tips, and seeing how they're and look at how they're using social media to build their networks, and how they're modeling it for you, and you can adapt some of their practices. And if you're working for a nonprofit organization, there are a couple of resources that I find particularly useful. One is Community Boost, which I found through NTN. And it is a social media boutique agency in San Diego that works with nonprofits. And they just had a fantastic summit that was open and free to people. If you wanted the recordings, you had to pay. And they do these periodically. TechSoup and NTN also have webinars and other things, and in all sorts of things for nonprofits. I also recommend following Beth Cantor. I've learned so much from her on social media. She is a nonprofit expert based in California. She was one of our keynotes at the Global Ed Conference a few years ago. She's fantastic. She's written a bunch of different books. So I also recommend her if you are running a nonprofit and looking for specific advice in that venue. If you want to be connected to me, my Twitter handle is Elemenous, ELEMENOUS. I'm on Instagram at Lucy Gray 2, and my email is lucy@LucyGray Consulting. So that's my basic information for you, and I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to share my screen, hopefully, and hopefully this will answer some of Lee's questions. So he was asking about Paperly, and let me show you what Paperly looks like. Paperly is, I guess, a startup maybe in Scandinavia. I've been using it for a while. You can make a free paper. I pay $100 a year to have a more customized one. And so some of these features are not with a free version. And the newspaper that I put out is, it's, if you go to the globaleducationreport.com, you'll see it. And what it looks like here is, I've mapped it to a domain. So I own the domain, theglobaleducationreport.com. Otherwise, you would see Paperly in the title. I put information about our community here in the paper. This is the website for the paper, essentially. And what happens is articles are curated or grabbed from Twitter feeds that I specify and put in here every day. So there's and it's interesting. It seems to me that websites that have a lot of followers and social media influence tend to show up here in their algorithm. Even though I'll show you in a minute how I try to weight it. So there's a lot of kind of international news in the paper that I put out. I find it useful for kind of seeing what's important and what other organizations are putting out there. I can retweet it. I can share it on LinkedIn. I can put it on Facebook. People can subscribe to it and get it by email. But to edit it, and I think that's what Lee's asking, I have to log in with Twitter. And let's see if it will do that for me. Here we go. So if you're looking at my desktop, and hopefully you can see this, there's some tools that are now available because I'm logged in as a Paperly customer. And in this, I can auto post. There's settings so that I can auto post the newsletter to social media. So it goes to the Global Education or the Actionable Innovations Global Facebook and LinkedIn pages every day. And I can customize it. There's a lot of customization things that I can do under social media. This is what the newsletter looks like when people subscribe by mail. So I get a preview of that. And then under the settings on the right-hand side, I can specify the content, up to 25 sources of content to fill that newsletter. So theoretically, the top ones, it should be taking links from those sources first, but I'm finding that it's not quite doing that. So I don't know how well this works or not, but you can see that it is anything that I tweet from Global Ed Action is one source, from my Elementis account, from our partners at World Savvy, from our Glow Conference partners. Those ones are weighted and will supposedly be given higher priority when auto curating the content. So in there, and I also have some hashtags in there and some Twitter lists as well. So this list down here at the bottom, which is ranked the lowest, seems to, a lot of the content from here, it's a pretty heavy duty list, seems to outweigh the other content, I think. But I change this up every once in a while and I play with it. You can have up to 25 sources. You can search for something, or you can search by source. There are lots of different options you can do. I also try to, Paperly has verified websites too. So I have this turned on so that it's stuff that's been verified by them as well. So I don't know if that helps you. I'm going to stop sharing, Lee. So how do you subscribe to it? If you go to, let me get the link for you. It's embedded on the front page of Actionable Innovations Global. And if you go to this link here, you should be able to subscribe to it at actionableinnovations.global. If you go to our homepage, if you're a member and you go to our homepage, you'll see the embed there too. And I believe there's a subscribe button as well. So it should be right on the front page. Let me get you that link. And there it is. I'm going to pull up the Padlet, see if anybody introduced themselves there. I guess we have a very, since it's right before a holiday here in the United States, we probably don't have a huge audience today, because Labor Day is on Monday and people are probably taking off for it. I wanted to do this webinar as a way of having people think about how they're using technology to connect with other people first and foremost. If you are a Glow presenter or considering being a Glow presenter, I hope you are, and I'll get you the call for proposals too. One of the things that is going to be important, we promote the conference, and it helps also if you promote your sessions to your network. And there's the call for proposals in the chat. So if you get comfortable with Twitter, for example, you can tweet out the link to your session. You can invite people to join our community and be part of it. And the more you can also find some like-minded people that you might collaborate with too. So the point of this whole session was to kind of get people thinking about how they're leveraging social media in intentional, specific ways, and to help you start thinking about how you're going to help promote the conference and your session in November. The call for proposals is open through November 1st. However, if you apply now to present, and there are a couple that I still have to approve right now that are pending, you're going to get the best. They're going to get the earliest access to our booking calendar. So you pick your time when you're going to present during that 24-hour period. So if usually during the US, daylight hours or daytime hours, that's pretty popular time to present. It's looking right now how the proposals have come in that the Saturday morning times are really popular right now. There's three slots per hour. And when they're taken up, they're gone. So if you wait to the last minute to get your proposal in, you may get like a presenting time. You may have to only, late at night on Friday, you might be able to find an open slot. So we recommend that you get your proposal in as soon as you can. I sent out a newsletter, which is it's published on several different platforms. I'll get the link for you in a second, with some ideas for topics. And we're really interested in, anything to do with global education and innovation. And we're not necessarily looking for uh, general education topics like, math, but it has to be in the context of something that's innovative, that will support the development of global competency in students and teachers. We also are interested in overviews and introductions to organizations that are working with schools and doing interesting things. As long as it has some sort of tie to innovation and or global, we're really looking for it. So this is an example of our newsletter that we post in several different forms. And we posted on LinkedIn, we posted on Twitter, we posted on Medium. It's the same thing. And our most recent one here on Twitter, the same content. I'm going to put the link here. So I'm not doing the mathly right now, but it's 24 hours times 3, so that's 72. If we get that filled up, we will add more sessions. But I'm not going to put in like 5 sessions in an hour. I want to. The reason is we want to fill up the schedule in as much as possible before we expand. So we'll see. We have maybe 15 sessions that have been booked so far. And we're going to announce keynotes soon and that sort of thing too. So those will take up a few of those slots as well. So in previous years, we've had anywhere between 200 and 400 sessions. And I expect that we'll probably be in the 200 mark. But right now, I want to kind of get the schedule filled up before I add more slots if we need to. You can't find, Lee, what can you not find? The conference? I'm not sharing my screen right now. It's just me. Oh, I'm just talking and I don't think I'm actually visible. No, I am visible. What can't you find, Lee? Okay. The conference is okay. So let me give you everything you should need to know about the conference is hang on here. Should be here in this Linktree link. There's several links in there. And I can also put up a banner. I'm getting really fancy here. Put a new banner up with our Linktree information as well. And you should find a link to everything, to our community, which is a Ning. Our conference is on Hopin, and other related resources should be available in that. I'm going to jump over here to LinkedIn and see if anybody jumped in here, and I think comments would pop up here. I don't see anything going on in LinkedIn. I think all of the comments are coming in here on StreamYard. So I can't hear you, Lee, because I can invite you up here if you want to be part of this. Let's see if I can do this here, Lee. You can join in. I'm going to give you. There's your comment here. Let's see, Lee. If you click on that link, you can join right here. And I really shouldn't put this in the comments because then like 5 million people can join, but I don't think anybody's really watching. So if you want to be on the screen and join the back channel here, you click on that StreamYard link, Lee, and then you can be visible. The one right above you. So we're using Hopin now, which is a platform that I've purchased. We're using it for our webinars. We're also using it for the conference. It is Zoom is, I like the quality of Zoom a lot. But this had everything kind of built in, the whole conference setup and that sort of thing. And there's a backstage where you can have multiple people, kind of waiting to come up and present and that sort of thing. And you can have content. I don't know if you have to have an account or what, Lee. Anyway, so you can pull audience members in by using this special link to the backstage. And that's what I've given you, Lee, in the chat. I don't know what happens when you try to use it. Any luck, Lee? There you are. I see you. There you are. Hi, Lee. How are you?
I'm sorry for not being able to get there quicker.
It's okay. It's okay. You did well. So what's going on? How's life? Tell us about your PLN. Any tips for anybody?
School.
There you are. Hi, Lee. How are you?
I'm sorry for not being able to get there quicker.
It's okay. It's okay. You did well. So what's going on? How's life? Tell us about your PLN. Any tips for anybody?
I've got two versions of this going simultaneously. I guess I can just close one out. There you go.
It's okay.
Now we're here, and you can hear me now?
Okay. Yeah, that's better. Much better.
Okay. I'm sorry. There's a lot of echo. You were asking about what's happening. School's starting. We've got a great thing going. I must admit that this summer I had a kind of a challenging summer. I was diagnosed with cancer back in April, but I beat it. I think I beat it. We're still working on it, but yeah.
You look great. You look fantastic. I was wondering how things were going. So
thanks. No,
good for you.
I appreciate your concern. It was a long, arduous task, and I had lots of family and friends and people like that were helping me, and it made it work. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I went through my own experience with breast cancer last fall, and it was they caught it early, thank God. And it wasn't awful, but I think at the time I just plowed through and got through it. Like I just, and I didn't realize, this is a big deal. So,
what did they use to treat it?
So I had a lumpectomy like in October or November, I think. I can't even remember when.
Mm-hmm.
And then radiation starting in January for a month. And then I'm on a hormone suppressant for 5 years. I'm on tamoxifen.
That's
so
good.
So I feel great. I had a great surgeon. I had a great oncologist. My family friend is an oncology nurse. So I go to the doctor she works for, who's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I had the garden variety kind of breast cancer. So it's really treatable now.
Oh, good.
And at the end of this month, I go for another diagnostic mammogram. They don't do one for like another year to see. And I'm assuming everything's well because I feel good. And, when you get to be a certain age, these things kind of happen. So you have to, you have to, brace yourself for it and get through it. Right.
Have you noticed that more and more of your discussion is about the doctor that you just went to go see?
Yeah, yeah. All my discussions are more about health these days, is in general.
Exactly.
So so you've developed a global professional learning network as part of your work over the years,
Hmm.
mostly probably because of ISTE. Any tips or tricks for people who are looking to connect and collaborate from your that you can offer from your experience?
I think you covered most of the ideas. The idea is to go find lists and things like that of people you admire, people that are in your field, such as yourself, and use the work that you've already built upon, and then try to expand upon that. I think finding groups like this, the Actionable Innovations, it was fantastic that you contacted me when you started it up, and it's a chance to meet new people, and I bumped into people like Scott McLeod, and he and I know each other from a long back, so we've kind of reconnected. And then what was her name? The one that did Mad Apps.
Alethea?
Yeah, and actually, believe it or not, I think 2 weeks after that, they invited me to a cooking event where
Ah,
there were people in India and Washington D.C. and Iowa and everybody, and we were all cooking something that it was an Indian dish.
so that's
So,
Mad Learn, and they just did some big event. Let me get the link for people. Um, yeah, they're pretty amazing. She's
now,
pretty
what's
amazing.
interesting is one of the things we do in we've got an ed tech and design class, which is an introduction to using technology to support learning for future teachers. And one of the things that we put in there, we started it probably 8, 10 years ago. One of the assignments is to build your personal learning network. And whereas what happens is typically with a class, you get a book, you get a lecturer, and you take all that stuff, and that's what you get tested on. And what we're
Yeah,
trying to do is just blow the walls off, because what we're doing is we're saying go out and find your favorite author. Go to Facebook and meet
yeah,
some teachers. Try building mentors and connecting
yeah,
with people like that. And maybe even going in many cases they go back to teachers they already had, and so that's something we rarely do.
yeah.
And so
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's a great big first step. Some people don't quite get it, but then there's the ones that just love it.
And then in what happens is when serendipity kicks in and you have like some great experience because you're connected,
Hmm.
then people get it, and you can't mandate those, you can't make them happen. It comes with the territory. The more you dive in and the
Right.
more you're connected, the more likely you're going to experience something pretty exciting. And I see technology. Yeah, I think we've gotten such a negative. Scott McLeod just published or something about somebody who was saying no technology for kids right now.
Mhm.
And I think because not enough people have had enough positive experiences or are comfortable with this sort of thing, um, that there gets to be technology's got a little bit of a negative rap. And so how do we curate and create experiences for educators and organization leaders to dip their toes in and get a taste of that? And I think our conference, the Global Ed Conference, now known as the as GLOW, um, is one place to do that. And so many people, I know the sessions that you've always done with David in Connecticut
Hmm.
around teacher education, that sort of thing, always has drawn a good crowd. And there's a lot of higher ed people who are really interested in connecting with you guys. Uh, I just feel like it's a way to find the conference is a way to find your people and to
Well,
see
and,
what
and the
appeals
thing
to you.
about technology getting a bad rap, I think the key is we have to turn it around. And that is, what are the experiences of? I mean, think about what you're doing. You're transcending all physical constraints with what
Yeah,
you're doing there, and then the things that you do on a daily basis. And the whole idea is it's not the technology, it's what you're doing. I mean, my favorite saying is that technology is not the thing, it's the thing that gets you to the thing.
yeah. So
And I
I have another question for you related to this. In
Mhm.
terms of teacher education in the United States, Are there any requirements that students take a technology related course, or is your university taking the approach that technology should be infused into all ed courses for pre-service teachers?
The answer to the first question is yes. We do have a class that's that ed tech and design class I was telling you about,
Okay.
and we've just introduced computational thinking and programming in that, because interestingly enough, in Iowa, 2 or 3 years ago, they came up with a mandate saying that beginning in the fall of 2023, they're going to it'll be required that students will have a coding um, experience at the elementary, middle school, and high school level. And we have an elementary school here that's called it's a programming elementary school where all the teachers and all the way from first to eighth are building that logical thinking process.
That school is in Des Moines. I think you told us about it
Exactly.
before.
Okay,
Yeah.
and I've only got so many things, so I'm obviously going to repeat sometimes.
Right. Do you know what the name of it is? I can't remember the name of it.
Actually, I think it's in Sioux City. I think it's in Sioux City. I'll look it up
I'll
for you,
find it. Okay.
and I'll look
Um,
up. But the thing is that what we're
yeah.
doing is that we've got this class, and we are working to, the pandemic kind of threw a little bit of a wrench in things, so we're coming back to that. But they are
Mhm.
using a lot of connections in the other classes, and what we're trying to do is get them to look at it from a larger point of view. And there, one of the things we're planning to do is that we would like to take, now that we've got the system laid out and begun with a with with the computational work.
Mhm.
Um, we also want to make it so maybe the language and the jargons and things like that are things that are being integrated into the reading classes and the math classes and things like that. So it just becomes part of the culture.
Yeah, yeah. I'm working on a paper for site, I guess, with a bunch of teacher educators. And, it's hard to see from a bird's eye view what requirements are where. Does it come from states? Does it come at the it feels like it comes at the individual university level. There it doesn't seem to be a lot of state requirements for teachers getting licensed to have any kind of technology background, which is kind of a little shocking.
Well,
Um,
we have a requirement in there, and whether it's done with a single class or whether it's done with inside the other classes, the problem is that things are not necessarily validated and documented if they're using the other, if it's within the method
yeah,
classes.
interesting. Okay, it's
But
interesting.
at least we've got it set up. We run probably 180, 200 students through a semester,
That's fantastic. That's great.
and it works pretty well.
That's great. It's good to know. So next week, I'm going to put a plug in for next week. I think you'll really like next week's session. It is with Dana Mortensen, who's the CEO of World Savvy,
Hmm.
and she's uh, she's hysterically funny and charismatic. And she's an Ashoka Fellow. She's run this organization for 20 years, which is really a whole school model for
Wow.
um, helping schools develop globally competent students and teachers. And they're partnering with us on the conference this year, and so you'll hear a lot about World Savvy in general. But she's going to tell us more and introduce us to World Savvy a little bit more in depth next week.
And who is
Uh,
that?
Her name's Dana Mortensen, and she's based in Minneapolis. World Savvy also has an outpost in San Francisco, but they
Hmm.
work with schools all over the country and world, actually.
Right.
So, and then the following September 16th, our next Actionable Innovations guest is Heather Singmaster, who used to work for the Asia Society on their
Hmm.
global competence efforts. And she's recently moved to Digital Promise Global, and she is also the person behind Global Ed Chat, which I believe is going to start around the same time. It's going to be a monthly chat um, in Twitter and also in Twitter Spaces
Oh,
uh,
good.
starting about mid-September sometime. So those details are going to be coming out from Heather soon. But those are our next two webinars that we have scheduled,
Great.
and
That looks great.
there'll be more coming.
Well, I really appreciate you're putting this together, and it's good to be back in the swing of things.
Yeah. Well, it's
And,
good to see you. It's good to see you. The more the merrier. I'm going to end this broadcast. If anybody has any questions, they can reach me at lucygrayconsulting.com. And thanks for tuning in and watching the recording if you're watching the recording. Take
see you
care.
later.